The distress beacon cut through the cosmic void like a scream, broadcasting on every known frequency across 17 star systems. Emergency Protocol Omega-7 had never been used before, not in the 3,000 years since the Zilani had joined galactic civilization. Their harmonious voices, now fractured with terror, echoed through space stations and capital ships throughout the galaxy. This is First Speaker Cathara of the Zilani Homeworld Coalition. Our system is under attack by an unknown force. They consume everything, our colonies, our people, our very worlds. We are a peaceful species. We have no weapons, no armies, no knowledge of warfare. Please, any civilized race willing to assist, we offer our entire technological database, our cultural treasures, anything you require. We estimate 47 standard days before our homeworld falls. The Zilani had always been the galaxy's poets and philosophers. Their crystalline cities floated in perfect harmony above their azure seas, powered by tidal generators and solar collectors. For millennia, they had contributed art, literature, and scientific theory to galactic society, while others handled the crude necessities of trade and politics. War was an alien concept to them. They had evolved past such primitiveness eons ago. The Vorthok swarm had arrived without warning. Living ships the size of asteroids emerged from dark space, their biomechanical hulls pulsing with malevolent purpose. They didn't communicate, didn't negotiate, didn't even acknowledge the Zilani's attempts at peaceful contact. They simply consumed. Entire planets stripped bare in days, their populations either devoured or converted into grotesque additions to the ever-growing swarm. The Altarians received the distress call first. These ancient energy beings considered themselves the galaxy's eldest children, their consciousness transcending mere physical form. Their response arrived within hours. The Vorthok phenomenon represents a natural selection process. Interference would disrupt cosmic balance. We decline involvement. The Crystalline Confederation's reply was equally disappointing, but predictably analytical. Their silicon-based intelligence calculated probabilities with cold precision. Military intervention requires a minimum fleet of 800 vessels and supporting logistics chains. Projected casualties exceed acceptable parameters. Economic cost-benefit analysis indicates negative return on investment. Request denied. The Mechanic Union's response was the most brutal in its honesty. The Zilani offer insufficient compensation for the required military expenditure. Furthermore, Vorthok biotechnology presents potential value if harvested properly. We suggest negotiating surrender terms to minimize loss of valuable resources. One by one, every major galactic power provided variations of the same message. Too expensive, too dangerous, not our problem. The Xantharian Republic cited jurisdictional concerns. The Spiral Alliance claimed resource allocation conflicts. The Trade Federation worried about market stability. 47 days became 36. The Zilani's outer colonies fell silent. Their desperate pleas grew more frantic, more degraded as their communication arrays were systematically destroyed. The galaxy's response remained the same polite refusals wrapped in diplomatic language. Each civilization finding perfectly logical reasons to let an entire species face extinction. Then, from an unexplored sector labeled only as Sol 3 in the galactic databases came a response. The signal was crude, transmitted using basic quantum entanglement communicators rather than the sophisticated psionic networks preferred by advanced civilizations. The voice was harsh, speaking galactic common with a strange accent that mangled several phonemes. Zilani Homeworld Coalition, this is Admiral Sarah Chun of the United Earth Defense Force. We've received your distress call. We're mobilizing our fleet now. Hold your positions and protect your civilians. We're coming to help. Estimated arrival in 31 standard days. Stay strong, Sol 3 out. The Galactic Council's emergency session convened immediately. Sol 3 was barely in their records. Class 12 Deathworld, inhabited by a species that had only achieved faster-than-light travel 15 years ago. Humans, they called themselves. Primitive mammals from a planet so hostile that most galactic species required environmental suits just to survive its surface gravity. What could these barbaric newcomers possibly accomplish against a force that had made the galaxy's greatest powers turn away in calculated indifference? Asterisk, within 6 hours of receiving the Zilani distress call, every major Earth government had committed resources to what they designated Operation Guardian Shield. The United Nations Security Council passed Resolution 2847 unanimously, the fastest vote in their history. For the first time since humanity had reached the stars, every nation on Earth spoke with one voice. The American Pacific Fleet contributed. Their newest carriers, the USS Enterprise and USS Roosevelt, bristling with fighter squadrons and long-range missile systems. Russia deployed their heavy cruiser battle group, led by the Admiral Kuznetsov, ships designed for brutal close-quarters combat with reinforced titanium hulls and particle beam arrays. China's manufacturing worlds worked around the clock, producing ammunition, medical supplies, and spare parts at unprecedented rates. The European Union provided their most advanced targeting computers and tactical AI systems. Admiral Chun stood on the bridge of the flagship UE's Defiant, watching as humanity's largest fleet assembled in Earth orbit. 237 vessels, from destroyers to dreadnoughts, every ship designed with one principle in mind: survive the impossible and make the enemy pay for every meter of space. These weren't exploration vessels or trading ships. They were instruments of war, built by a species that had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing. The galactic observers stationed at Sol 3 transmitted their reports with growing unease. Human ships defied every principle of civilized spacecraft design. Where other species prioritized efficiency and elegance, humans built redundancy and firepower. Triple-layered armor plating, backup systems for backup systems, weapons mounted on every available surface. The human philosophy was simple: if it can break, it will break. So build it stronger and carry bigger guns. Intercepted human communications revealed planning sessions that horrified the galactic community. Terms like acceptable losses, scorched, Earth tactics, and strategic martyrdom peppered every briefing. Humans discussed casualty projections with the same clinical detachment that Altarians used for energy calculations. But unlike the energy beings, humans expected to be among those casualties and didn't care. The fleet's journey to Zilani space took 28 days through hyperspace corridors that larger galactic vessels couldn't navigate. Human engineers had designed their ships smaller and more maneuverable, sacrificing cargo space for tactical flexibility. They traveled in tight formations, constantly drilling combat maneuvers and refining attack strategies against an enemy they'd never faced. Lieutenant Commander Maria Santos, tactical officer aboard the destroyer UE's Retribution, reviewed intelligence reports on the Vorthak swarm during the journey. The data was incomplete. Most civilizations hadn't bothered studying an enemy. They wouldn't fight, but certain patterns emerged. The swarm operated through hive intelligence, coordinating attacks with perfect synchronization. Their bioships could regenerate damage and adapted to enemy weapons after prolonged exposure. They showed no fear, no hesitation, no mercy. Perfect, Santos thought. Neither do we. The Galactic Council convened emergency sessions to discuss the human problem. These Deathworlders were heading toward a conflict that would likely result in their complete annihilation, and their extinction might destabilize the entire sector. Worse, if humanity somehow survived, they would become a military power that could challenge the established order. On the 29th day, Admiral Chun's voice crackled across all frequencies as the human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Zilani space. The outer planets were already gone, consumed by writhing masses of organic ships that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. The Vorthak swarm had grown larger, incorporating the biomass of entire worlds into their collective. All vessels, this is Admiral Chun. We've come 30,000 light years to be here. We've left our families, our homes, our world behind because someone asked for help and nobody else answered. Today we show this galaxy what humanity stands for. We don't abandon our friends. We don't calculate acceptable losses when lives are at stake. And we sure as hell don't let monsters win because the math doesn't add up. The human fleet formed battle lines as bioships began converging on their position. 237 vessels against thousands of Vorthek creatures. The mathematics were undeniable. Humans had never been good at mathematics. The first Vorthek bioship that engaged the human fleet learned what 10,000 years of constant warfare had taught humanity: there's no such thing as a fair fight. Only fights you win and fights you lose. The creature, massive as a small moon with writhing tentacles and bioluminescent weapon pods, expected the standard galactic response: long-range energy exchanges followed by tactical withdrawal when damage accumulations exceeded acceptable parameters. Instead, the destroyer UE's retribution accelerated directly toward it at maximum burn, firing everything simultaneously while broadcasting something the Vorthek had never encountered before: human war music. The opening notes of Ride of the Valkyries mixed with ancient Celtic war chants as the destroyer rammed straight through the bioship's center mass, detonating its reactor core inside the creature's body. The Vorthek swarm recoiled. In 3,000 years of expansion, no prey species had ever voluntarily destroyed itself to inflict damage. The concept didn't compute in their collective consciousness. Captain James Rodriguez of the heavy cruiser UE's vengeful spirit discovered that Vorthek bioships, for all their adaptive capabilities, had no defense against the oldest weapon in humanity's arsenal: boarding parties. While the creatures regenerated hull breaches and adapted to energy weapons, they couldn't prevent humans in hard suits from cutting through their organic hulls with plasma torches and explosives. Marine squads fought their way through living corridors, setting charges in what appeared to be nerve clusters, while the bioships screamed in frequencies that shattered conventional communication arrays. The Zalani, huddled in their crystal cities, watched through long-range sensors as humans employed tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare. When conventional weapons proved insufficient, human ships released clouds of engineered viruses, Earth pathogens modified to attack Vorthek organic systems while remaining harmless to Zalani physiology. The bioships began developing massive necrotic lesions. Their regenerative capabilities turned against them as modified bacteria consumed their tissues faster than they could heal. Admiral Chun's tactical doctrine defied every computer simulation the Galactic Council had ever run. Human vessels used ramming attacks as standard operating procedure. Fighter squadrons performed suicide runs to break Vorthek formations. The flagship UES Defiant engaged 3 bioships simultaneously while broadcasting a continuous loop of human death metal at frequencies that disrupted Vorthek neural coordination. Lieutenant Commander Santos coordinated what humans called broken arrow protocols, the deliberate sacrifice of damaged vessels to maximize enemy casualties. The destroyer UES Phoenix, its engines failing and weapons depleted, accelerated toward the largest Vorthek cluster and detonated its antimatter reserves. The explosion vaporized 17 bioships and sent shockwaves through the swarm's collective consciousness. For the first time in their existence, the Vorthek encountered prey that fought harder when cornered. Human damage control teams worked inside ships that were literally falling apart, rerouting power through melted conduits and firing weapons with manual targeting when their computers failed. Marines continued fighting even when their oxygen supplies ran low, using emergency atmosphere to extend their combat effectiveness by precious minutes. The battle reached its climax when the Feymaze Vorthek deployed their ultimate weapon, a bioship the size of Earth's moon, its surface covered with millions of smaller parasitic vessels. The creature began consuming the outer Zilani colonies, growing larger with each world it devoured. Admiral Chun made the decision that would echo through galactic history. All vessels, this is Admiral Chun. We came here to save the Zilani, and by God, we're going to do it. U.S. Defiant will engage the primary target directly. All other ships, cover our approach and protect the Zilani homeworld. If we don't make it, tell Earth we did our duty. The flagship, already damaged from hours of continuous fighting, accelerated toward the massive bioship. Every remaining human vessel formed up behind it, creating a spearhead formation that drove straight into the heart of the Vorthak swarm. The Defiant's final transmission cut through the chaos as its antimatter core went critical inside the creature's central mass. For Earth, for Zilani, for everyone who won't bow to monsters. The explosion tore a hole in space itself. The massive bioship collapsed inward, taking half the swarm with it. The remaining Vorthak creatures, their collective consciousness shattered by the death scream of their greatest vessel, began a chaotic retreat toward dark space. Humanity had broken the unbreakable. The unstoppable swarm was running. The silence that followed the Vorthak retreat was deafening. For the first time in recorded galactic history, the unstoppable force had met something that refused to move. 73 human vessels remained, operational from the original fleet of 237. The survivors floated among the debris fields, tending to their wounded with the same quiet efficiency they had brought to the battle itself. First, Speaker Kithura's voice trembled as she transmitted from the Zilani homeworld, We are saved. The humans have saved us. Her people emerged from their crystal shelters to witness the aftermath of violence beyond their comprehension. Entire moons had been shattered. The space around their system glowed with the residual energy of antimatter explosions. The humans had not just fought the Vorthak. They had broken them so completely that the swarm's retreat bordered on panic. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session within hours. Representatives who had dismissed the human intervention as doomed folly now faced an uncomfortable reality. The primitive mammals from Sol 3 had accomplished what the galaxy's greatest military powers deemed impossible. Dr. Zelenth of the Altarian Collective, one of the galaxy's foremost xenobiologists, presented findings that sent shockwaves through the assembled civilizations. Earth's classification as a Class 12 death world hadn't been an exaggeration, it had been an understatement. The planet's surface gravity was 3 times galactic standard. Its atmosphere contained enough oxygen to be toxic to most species. The temperature variations alone would kill 70% of known galactic life forms, but the environmental hazards were nothing compared to Earth's biological history. Humans had evolved in constant competition with megafauna that would be classified as Kaiju on any civilized world. They had survived ice ages, volcanic supereruptions, asteroid impacts, and plagues that would have driven most species extinct. For millions of years, their primary predators had been other humans. The data was staggering. Human bone density exceeded galactic norms by 400%. Their muscle mass to body weight ratio was off the charts. Their cardiovascular systems could function under conditions that would cause most aliens to collapse from shock. They could survive blood loss that would kill a Zilani, radiation exposure that would mutate a crystalline, and psychological trauma that would fragment an Altarian consciousness. They don't fight to win, Dr. Zelenth concluded, his energy form flickering with what might have been fear. They fight to survive. And they've been doing it for so long that violence is encoded into their genetic memory. Every human is a living weapon forged by the most hostile planet in known space. The political implications hit immediately. The Mechanic Union's trade ambassador requested emergency defensive protocols. The Crystalline Confederation began calculating the resources needed to appease these new apex predators. The Spiral Alliance quietly withdrew their expansion fleets from sectors adjacent to human space. Within days, new galactic protocols were established. Article 7 of the Emergency Defense Compact stated simply, "No galactic entity shall threaten, attack, or otherwise antagonize allies or protectorates of the Sol 3 civilization." The subtext was clear: making enemies of humanity's friends meant making enemies of humanity itself. The humans, meanwhile, remained characteristically direct in their response to galactic recognition. Admiral Chun's replacement, Admiral Torres, addressed the Galactic Council with words that would be remembered for millennia. "We didn't come here for glory or territory or trade agreements. We came because someone asked for help and nobody else answered. That's who we are. That's who we choose to be." The Vorthic Swarm, their collective consciousness permanently scarred by their encounter with Earth's children, transmitted a single message before disappearing into the galactic void. Warning: avoid Sol 3 designation species. Termination probability unacceptable. On Earth, memorial services were held for the 8,247 humans who had died saving a species they'd never met. Admiral Chun's daughter read his final log entry at the ceremony. "We came here as strangers to a galaxy that had already given up on hope. We leave as guardians of that hope, whether the galaxy wants us or not. This is who we are. This is who we choose to be." Across the galaxy, a new phrase entered common parlance. When faced with seemingly impossible odds, when threatened by forces beyond conventional response, civilizations no longer calculated probabilities or debated intervention. Protocols they called the humans.